Hello again, everybody. This is Anthony Sanchez. I'm the VP of Marketing here at Customers First Now, and we're going to get started with our webinar today. Today, our speakers are Kevin Kapp and Stephen Williams. Our first presenter is Kevin Kapp. He is a CX consultant here at Customers First Now, and he has a very deep background in both customer success and customer experience, as well as many other technical roles, including CIO. And his role here at CFN is helping our customers implement journey mapping and CX programs. We also have on the line Steve Williams, who is our Chief Product Officer here at Customers First Now, and he has a long 22 years of experience delivering world-class and award-winning products, including, by the way, our own CFN Insight journey mapping software. So thanks to you both for taking the time out of your busy schedules to speak with our audience today. So now what I'd like to do is turn it over to Kevin Kapp, and he will start with our presentation.
Thanks, Anthony. Hey, everyone. I'm excited to be here. I have spent the better part of 2 decades working on plans and presentations to request executive buy-off on CX projects and new tech projects. And so it's fun to be here and give you some of my lessons learned, because I've got to admit, I was not always great at this. When I remember back in the days when I first focused on doing executive presentations to get buy-off on a new program like customer experience, I used to dive right into all the great benefits, see how this is just going to be great for our team and it's going to help our customers. And I realized later on that not focusing on the financial benefits was something that was hindering me and not always a benefit for me. So you can change to the agenda slide. These are the topics that I'm going to be talking today about. And while I'm not going to go into the details of how to do more complicated financial analysis like net present value or internal rate of returns, I am going to encourage you to work with someone that is fairly strong on financial return analysis, so that when you talk to your management to get buy-off, you have a sound financial analysis. Today, we're really going to be focusing on how do you come up with your plan to create that presentation for your management, and what some ideas are for turning your customer experience program into more of a profit center than a cost center, because you can have a great financial return, but if you're not thinking about how you avoid being seen as a cost center, you'll run into some challenges. So let's just dive right into it. Let's go to the first slide. So, as you know, if you're thinking about a customer experience program at your company, certainly customer retention is going to be top of mind. This is something that you're going to want to dig into and really understand. How is your company doing in the past on customer retention, and what is your plan in the future as you implement customer experience? How are you going to track your retention rates and then compare it to the past, so that you can prove to management that you are making a difference? So your first task is to gather a lot of data and have a solid calculation. And this can be tricky. Understanding your retention rate for your company is not always as straightforward as you would think. And so you might want to think about using cohorts as a way of tracking retention instead of just doing a monthly basis. You might also want to think about employing more advanced techniques based on things like Six Sigma, where you can prove to your management that you're actually making a difference and that it's not just a false positive in the trend report. But in this graph, I do want to point out that as you implement customer experience, you're likely to have multiple different spikes in your retention rate. Hopefully, you should be seeing a spike after you implement customer experience because you're focused on the touch points that are most effective for helping your customers get value out of the product. But as you get more mature in your customer experience program, you should continue to graph that and continue to show your management, here are the additional spikes because we did something different. Maybe we focused more on a specific touch point that had a bigger impact, and that showed better retention rate. So granted, your spikes are probably not going to be as obvious. Your change in retention as you go on, you're going to get better, and you're going to have to be more accurate about seeing those spikes. But plan on showing management continued improvement over time. So let's go on to the next slide. And tracking retention rates, some people will call that churn or retention. That's important, but here in today's webinar, specifically tracking your financial return is top of mind and most important. So first off, for example, you might show that you had a 60% churn reduction, which is great, but I'm going to encourage you to focus on the second one. What is your net revenue retention rate? That is probably one of the most key numbers you as a customer experience executive is going to want to key off of and show your management. This is going to be the number that translates into real dollars, because logo churn, it can be great, but if you're not tracking actual annual reoccurring revenue from a net perspective, that's going to be key. And so in case you're not aware of kind of that net annual revenue retention number, what that is looking at your current customer base minus any revenue you lost from that current customer base, plus any new revenue you generated from your current customers. So an example would be you upsold a new service, you added more license to a current customer. So best practices, the kind of the industry average is you should be getting in to like 110%. If you were able to get into over 125% net revenue retention, you would be doing outstanding. So in your plan, if you're going to get executive buy-off, you want to be talking to them about, here's where we are currently without a customer experience program. Here's what I would expect we are going to see after we implement it, and then have the good financial tracking to show whether you met that goal. And then lastly, that last figure, the 50% revenue from your renewal base, this number is going to depend on how big you are as a company. As you grow, your revenue, more and more of it is going to be coming from your existing customer. And so while this isn't a critical number to get buy-off from, it is something that you're going to want to track, because you as a customer experience executive are going to be have a bigger say in the organization as that number grows. For example, if your retention revenue is only 10% of the overall company revenue, that's you're not going to have as much executive voice. But as more and more of your company revenue comes from that retention number, and you get up into 50%, you're getting to be a very important voice in in the company. And so tracking that and showing your executives how that is changing is going to be a powerful aid in your ongoing customer experience program. So let's go on to the next slide. And I want to give you a little bit of bad news, because if let's say you come up with an executive buy-in plan and they give you money and you start implementing and you're doing great, you're starting to show a positive and improved annual net recurring revenue. I've got some bad news in that a lot of times what I've heard out there is that the executives start to feel like that is kind of a given. That okay, great, you've taken us from 110% net annual revenue retention, and now we're at 120. Well, that's the new baseline for you, and a lot of times the executives will start to feel like you're just a cost center, and that the company should always get 120% net recurring revenue. And so that's the bad news. The good news is there's a way to combat that challenge, and that you should, in your plan from the very beginning, start to talk about how customer experience can generate new revenue from new offerings. And so how does this look? And I heard a talk by the executive director of the TSIA, that's the Technology Services Industry Association. They do a lot of surveying of companies out there, and they ask them, do you monetize customer success or customer experience? And they found out, surprisingly, that 49% of them are somehow implementing programs that generate new revenue. So I'm not talking about upsells or cross-sells or just retaining customers. I'm talking about actually coming up with a brand new revenue stream that the company has never seen before. And so that can be part of your executive buy-in program to say, hey, we're going to focus on increasing our ARR, our annual revenue, but we're also going to start working on implementing a new program. So what might that look like? It might be that your company has always done training for free. That's just part of your standard onboarding effort. And so you might come up with a tiered structure where you still offer free training, but you have maybe a premier training program. Another thing that you might look at, I've heard of companies monetizing data that is generated out of their platform that could be of value to their customers, like custom reports that include more than just their specific data. So there's all kinds of ideas out there. I recommend looking at that and see if you can include that in some kind of a plan for your executives. Let's go on to the next slide. And the other thing is, you're talking about management buy-in, is make sure you understand the total cost of the customer experience program, but also have really good costs on what it takes to get a new customer. I've included on this slide kind of the industry standard. If you do a full cost analysis of sales, including all the marketing spend, then new sales is a very expensive endeavor, whereas customer experience has again and again shown that it is a really cheap option for retaining and getting new revenue. I heard a great quote from a guy that said, marketing is simply a tax on our inability to get our customers to advocate for us. And so that's if in customer experience, if you can implement programs that get your customers out there for free advocating for you, that's one of the reasons why customer experience programs can be such a cheap way to get towards greater revenue for your company. So let's go on to the next slide. I mentioned that I used to be really terrible at getting executive buy-in, and one of my favorite success stories was during the Great Recession back in 2009. I had gotten much better at focusing on the financial benefit of a program, and so during the Great Recession, I remember where I was working, all the other departments were getting budget cuts, and I actually got a budget increase during one of the worst recessions in the recent history, and it was all based on focusing on return on investment. But after you do that, after you present why this is a financial benefit, you certainly want to talk about how a CX program does more than just the financial benefit. And here's just a few examples on the screen. Certainly it helps you monitor your customer health. It helps the company find root cause of challenges and dissatisfaction. And this list, I actually had twice as long list. And I'm sure you as a CS executive can come up with a lot of great ideas. So towards the end of your presentation, certainly you want to talk about the added benefits of a CX program. But let's go on and let's actually talk about a more detailed, we call them ROCS plan. So your return on customer experience. This is a term we've generated here that is really all about how you get specific on identifying your return on investment. Let's say you start with the premise or the hypothesis that by, let's say, investing $500,000 in a new CX program, that your net annual reoccurring revenue is going to increase from 110% to 118%, and that will result in a 2-year internal rate of return on the program of 20%. So let's say that's your hypothesis. Now, what are you going to do in your plan to your management on how that's going to become a reality? And so creating your return on customer experience plan is going to identify the concrete steps. And so one of the best things you can do for creating that plan is to start with a great customer journey map. And so as you develop that map and figure out all the touch points, so a journey map is across all the different touch points that you're having with your customers from your customer's perspective. You know, what out of those, what are all the moment of truth and the pain points that your customers experience? And then the moment of truth, by the way, are those really critical points where you're maybe doing great, but you've got to continue to get it right because it is make or break for your customers. And a lot of times you can find your pain points through survey data. Hopefully you as a company have good historical survey data where you know the customers are complaining on a certain touch point. If you don't, your plan should be to have a survey, a way of interviewing some of your customers to identify that. But start to create that journey map and have those touch points, and start to be able to measure where the improvements are going to come along the way. And I'm going to actually show you an example here in a minute and talk to you about a customer that I worked with and how we did this. So I'm not going to talk about it in detail right here, but surveying is important, and understanding how you're going to create operational efficiencies and the financial data. And this is a good time to plug in, making sure you have someone that can help you with the financial data analysis that links to these specific touch points. So hopefully you have a great financial accountant or team that can help you with this. If not, invest in an expert that can help you link real financial data to these touch points and be able to show how, as you go about improving them, they are making an actual change in the bottom line. Yeah, so let's go to the next page, and this is where I'm going to jump into a more specific example. Uh, I worked with a digital health company out in California for a number of years back, and I helped them come up with their plan for management to get buy-off on doing a new program. They were a company that was growing fast. They had invested a lot in sales and really nothing in customer experience, and they were starting to see that leakage, that telltale sign that they needed to focus on customer experience, but they hadn't really analyzed churn very well. They didn't have solid sense of their financial annual recurring revenue. And so we looked at that. I helped them analyze that and figure out what they were doing currently and a plan for tracking that after implementing a customer experience program. And we calculated that we should be able to increase it from, they were right around 105 IRR and getting it up to a net 114. And so we built that plan and presented it and got approval and started on working on a customer journey. And so let me just show you some, if you go to the next slide, Anthony, on some screenshots. And this isn't their map. The other non-disclosure agreements, I can't show you their specific map. But what we started with in a journey mapping for this type of work is, really start with who the business owners are. This is going to be your first critical insight because you're going to be able to find some really interesting situations, like where are there multiple owners on a touch point, because that's always a kind of a red flag where you really need to focus. And in this example, we've got, what is the multiple owners is, we've got some color coded. You can see the color coded different departments that are owning these different slides. So, for example, agree to T&Cs under the decide phase. We've got multiple business owners there. And so anyways, this is going to be a great starting point on your customer journey is understanding the business owners and working on a strategy for making sure there's good handoffs, making sure there's good ownership. And after we did this, we did a survey of the customers and asked them about all these different touch points. And so, Anthony, if we'll go to the next slide, you can see some of the results of this with our pain point and moment of truth view out of the CFN Insight software. So this software gives you the ability to look at the data in a lot of different ways. So this is one of my favorite reports of, hey, this is what we heard from our customers and was validated as an area that's really important to the customer, the green touch points. And then the red is going to be where it's a moment of truth and a pain point. So it's really important and it's a concern to the customer. And so those are going to be the areas you can prioritize in your plan to management. And you can go to them and say, we can't do everything. We've got a limited budget. We're going to focus on these top 3 red areas in the journey map, and we're going to watch our financial data and our net IRR and show how that changes as we improve these touch points. So that's a great part of your plan, your return on customer experience. And let's go on to the next slide, just another example of how you can use the CFN Insight tool to report on your progress. And this report is filtering on both your ownership and the ability to see where you are in the journey. And so this software is just going to be really key for any kind of executive that wants to show a return on investment. So, Anthony, let's go on and show. I think we've got one with a dashboard, right? The scorecard. Sorry. So the scorecard is going to be, as you start making improvements on your pain points and moment of truths, you can show executives your progress. So you can see it here, like on the first one, that paying invoices has been an ongoing pain point, and we have maybe struggled on this over the years. So our goal is to get it up to where we're 30% accuracy in there, and so the green is going to show you how you're doing in your progress on achieving that goal. And this is great for showing the executives this is our actual metrics that we're tracking to show we're making improvements on the plan. So, and then the last slide is just as I was finishing up with this digital health company, we went back and a year later, and then 2 years later, and then 3 years later, we showed the executives that we were actually able to reduce churn 1% per month. They were in kind of the 5% churn category, which is a really high churn rate for customers. And that ended up resulting at the end of the third year on a 30% increase in revenue. And that's significant. That is an awesome number for any executive to see that a CX program has generated that much increase in revenue for the company as a whole. So hopefully as you develop your plan for management buy-in, that you have a goal and that you are using your good financial analysis to show that you actually achieve it. So how do you get started today? One of the things, if you haven't started creating your return on customer experience plan, maybe a good place to start would be doing a best practice assessment. At CFN, we offer this for free. This is something that you can start out as a way to get an idea of are you as a company, do you have best practices already implemented? And if not, what are some of the key areas that you can use in your management buy-off report to show, hey, this is where the industry best practices are. Here's where we need to focus. So that's a great place to start. Again, reiterating next, focusing on building your customer journey map. Doing that, getting some funding to do that, and use that for your overall main plan is an important component of this. So, and then start to evaluate your customer journey, and prioritizing those touch points is going to be your next step. And finally, gathering the company financial data. I can't emphasize this enough. It's going to be challenging to gather the correct data, have it where it's linked up to the different touch points, and you have an ability to statistically validly show that you're making a difference is going to be important. So yeah, that's kind of the overall best practices. That's what I've learned over many years of doing this, has worked well. And so we're going to open it up to questions at this point from the audience.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Kevin. We do have a few questions coming in. And please, by the way, if you still have other questions for Kevin, just go ahead and use your questions tab to submit those, and I'll see if I can get to them in time. We have a few questions, Kevin.
Okay, great.
So over what time period should we use to evaluate our ROI for a CX investment?
Yeah, there's going to need to be buy-in from your management that this isn't a 1 month ROI type of investment. Certainly the minimum I would say would be a year, so 12 months after you implement and get things running. So that I'm not talking about 1 year from when you start implementing and start kicking off. I'm talking about 12 months after you have a CX program up and running is kind of the minimum I would say that you need to focus on, and you need to get buy-off that 2 years is probably going to be a better metric, a better time frame to compare before and after. So what was our 2-year period before we implemented CX, and then 2 years after CX is live, comparing those and seeing how the improvement is.
So great, thank you. I have another question. I think this one's pretty easy for you. What does ROCX stand for again?
Yeah, so it's return on customer experience. Okay. So what is the ROI for implementing a customer experience program?
And by the way, if you want to read a little bit more about ROCs, we do have a blog post about that on our website, so customersfirstnow.com, and just click on our blog, and we actually have I think it's the top posted blog post, so you can find out more about that there. Question for you, Kevin. How long would it take us to do a customer journey map if we did it ourselves?
Okay, well, that's going to depend a little bit on how good a data you have from your customers and how quickly you can get your executive team involved, because it is a collaborative process. Yeah, you can't, as a CX executive, just lock yourself in a room and come up with this map. You need to involve all areas of the company, because again, it's a customer journey from beginning to end. So you need experts that involve the customer at the very beginning in the sales process, in the use and support phases, and the retention phase. So I have typically seen, on average, it's a 3 to 6 month process. Best case, we've done it quickly in a 2-month time period, but 3 to 4 would be a good time period to think about.
Did you say 3 to 4
months? Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much for that. Just a couple of quick questions again. It says there's one here that's asking, will the slides be available after the webinar? Yes, we are recording this, and the recording will be available on our webinars and events page under the company menu on our website. So you can always go there. And we'll also send everybody an email with a link to the specific recording once we get that processed and up on the web. Let's see, we have one more. Have you measured CX impact on referrals?
Oh, on referrals, yeah. So this is another area that's critical to have really good data from your systems, a customer relationship management system or a sales management system. So yeah, referrals is a great way, obviously, to grow your revenue. And so being able to track that, this referral came in and was from an existing customer. Usually I've seen companies use their CRM system to track those referrals. There's often a drop-down box in there that you can say this came from an existing customer versus a new sales. And so be able to have that data before you implement customer experience and then compare that same report afterwards is another great way to show the return on investment. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Here's an interesting question. What is your definition of customer experience? Because I think, that's a big question for a lot of people. I mean, there's a lot of definitions out there. So for you, what's your definition?
Yeah, and I actually founded a company called CustomerSuccess.pro, and we had that's more of a niche. Customer success is more of a niche of customer experience. So customer experience is that whole end-to-end interaction with the customer all along the path. Customer success, I think, is a much more niche, where it's focused on retaining a SaaS type of customer, a software as a service customer after the sale. But customer experience is looking at the whole journey, and it includes sales. So that's why I said you need to involve everyone along that journey. And customer experience is all about how does the customer feel about you as a company and feel the relationship? Do they feel value all along the journey? And so, yeah, that's a great question. And that might be a good point is when you're asking for executive buy-in, make sure you come up with your internal definition and that the executives understand what you mean when you're talking customer experience.
Very good. And I think we have one last question that I think we can squeeze it in. Let's see, it's kind of a long one. So it says, in analyzing company revenue after a CX program is implemented, how do I know, or how do I be sure CX is the reason for the revenue growth and not some other factors like a great economy?
Yeah, and this is why a lot of people shy away from trying to do a financial return on investment, because how can they guarantee that it's not just the economy or something else? So this is where I'm going to encourage people to utilize really good data analytics team. Hopefully you as a company have a good resource internally. This is something that a good data scientist team, they deal with this all the time. This is not something that's unusual, where they can do things like regression analysis, and they can tease out other changes that are going on in your organization and be able to show with a statistical relevancy, thank you, that that the change is because of this program. And so, yeah, I'm certainly not going to go into all the different statistical ways that you can do this. So invest in a good data science team. If you don't have one, then get a partner that has a good data scientist team, because that'll be really critical for helping you do that.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I think that's all the questions we have. I don't see any more coming in at this point. I would just like to end with a few resources for you. Here at Customers First Now, we do have our own journey mapping software, and we have a trial for that. And you can go to our product page at customersfirstnow.com/CFNinsight, and you can actually sign up for either a demo or a trial, and just get a taste for how that works. And we're more than happy to help you out and help you figure out how to create your first map and your first touch point. So give that a shot if you can. Again, here's the URL for where our current webinar will be posted, as well as our past webinars are at customersfirstnow.com/events. And for attending our webinar, we always are more than happy to provide a complimentary CX strategy session. So if you have questions or want to discuss anything in your programs, your journey mapping, your customer experience, your VOC or survey best practices, or data analytics like Kevin was just talking about, we're more than happy to discuss that with you, give you, any perspectives that we have from, having done this as a company for more than 15 years now. I think we can probably give you a few good tips and advice. And so please feel free to do that. And if you have any other, specific needs or questions, you can email me at marketing@customersfirstnow.com. And I can get you to the right place or get you an answer to whatever your question is. So again, thank you for attending this. Thank you for Kevin and Steve for taking your time to produce this webinar. It's been really great, and we hope that everybody's gotten some value out of this. And we look forward to seeing you at our next month's webinar.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.